Our key focus has always been, growing our clients' business. Now we have about 100 people, have offices in London, Mumbai, Pune. We work with brands like Amul, Starbucks, KFC, Kotak. Consistency is immensely important when it comes to, ensuring your brand message is perceived the way you want to be perceived. You have to be authentic and you have to be consistent. If you're a hero, there's no need to act like a jester. If you're a sage, you don't need to act like an everyman. On social media, you can create your own tribe. We ensure that people have a life outside of advertising so that their advertising can have life.
India's advertising industry is one of the world's fastest growing and is expected to continue to grow in the coming years. AI is rapidly transforming the advertising landscape by enabling personalized campaigns, optimizing media placement, generating creative content, and analyzing consumer data, allowing brands to target audiences more effectively. But will it also take away the jobs of advertising professionals in future? Let's get to know on this and more from Mohit Ghate, co-founder Bit and Chai Media LLC. Hi Mohit, I welcome you to the Crazy Careers podcast. Thank you so much for giving us your time.
I'm glad to be here.
So before we begin, would you mind letting us know a bit about yourself and your journey so far and what exactly you do?
Yeah. So I am the founder of Wit and Chai Group. We are what you call a modern day advertising group where a group of services are offered through separate companies. I started this about 5 years ago because a friend of mine told me, he will pay me if I post for his cafe on Instagram. And I thought, I'm posting on my Instagram for free. I might as well, get paid for it. So that is how I started. And then, a couple of friends joined and, we just kept growing it. And I think when we look back, our key focus has always been, growing our clients' business, which has resulted in us growing, magnificently in the last 5-6 years, where now we have about 100 people, have offices in London, Mumbai, Pune. We work with brands like Amul, Starbucks, KFC, Kotak, so on and so forth, right? So that core business focus has been the reason of our growth. And my day mostly looks like, I'll wake up, I'll work out, I'll work, and then play with my cat.
Bit and Chai. So that's really an interesting name for the creative agency. So what exactly is the story behind it?
Right. Wit and Chai as a name wasn't our origin, right? We started with the name Nilgiri Social and we took that name because the domain name was available, right? That was it, right? Because back then we had no idea, how to name things because I'm not from advertising, right? Neither are my partners. I'm a dropout engineer. My partner's a CA. So we don't have any advertising background, so we didn't know how to name things. But as we got into it, we realized that we need a name that represents, what we do. And what we like to do is, create witty content and consume a lot, like liters and liters of chai. So we thought, why not just, put those two together? And it was actually my wife who said, you guys should just name your company Wit and Chai. And we realized, okay, that fits the personality of the company, that fits the way we do business. So then I thought, let's just name it that. And that's how, like, that's representative of how we've grown our company, where we've taken decisions quickly and we've made sure that we, either stick with them, study them, or we study them. And if we figure out they're failing, then we, quickly move out.
Right. What about coffee lovers? I mean, don't you feel like it is really unfair?
So there's something in the works for coffee lovers, for biscuit lovers. There's always something happening at Wit and Chai Group.
That's a witty reply, I would say. So, is there a short formula to create a campaign that sticks? Or basically, if I can put this question in a way, like, is there a formula to create a brand messaging that stays memorable for people?
I think there are two aspects here, right, to any brand messaging. The first one is, being able to define what your brand is. So in a crowd of people or in a crowd of brands, where does your brand stand, right? What is it that your brand will be seen as? Defining that in the most crisp manner is the first step. And then the second step is just being consistent. Just ensuring that we are consistently talking about the same thing. Of course, you have to be creative. You cannot become stale, but consistency is immensely important when it comes to, ensuring your brand message is perceived the way you want to be perceived. right? So first is obviously, as I said, you have to define what it is. And then second is remain consistent. Now you look at any brand that is established, even the younger brands that are established now, like people always give the example of a Nike, right? But Nike has had the time. We look at somebody who hasn't even had the time. We look at someone like Zomato, right? Zomato as a brand has been established over the last 10 years, which is in the life of a brand is not plot. But what they've done is they realize what they are, and it's just like knowing people, right? People who are consistent and authentic in what they are appreciated by everybody. It's the same thing with brands. You have to be authentic and you have to be consistent.
How do you see humor playing role in advertising? Can being too witty also backfire sometimes?
Yes. See, being too witty is sort of an, like, if you must, it's an oxymoron. Um, you would rather look at it as being witty or not, right?
Yeah.
Nike doesn't have to be witty. Apollo Hospitals doesn't have to be witty because that is not their personality. And advertising has been around for long enough that there are these models that have been created already. For example, there is the model of the 9 brand archetypes, right? You have to figure out, if you're a hero, there's no need to act like a jester.
Yes.
If you're a sage, you don't need to act like an everyman, right? You have to, again, it comes back to, knowing yourself, understanding what is the position you have in the grand scheme of things as a brand, and then, sticking to it and, ensuring that we stay to only that, even though the lure of being witty is always going to be there, especially since, social media loves to, promote funny and witty stuff. So the lure will always be there, but you have to understand that beyond your, vanity metrics of, just getting likes and comments, is it actually impacting the bottom line of the business? That is what you should look at.
Right, right. We always say content is king, but we live in an era where content is all around. So how do we make sure that our messaging is not being lost in the crowd?
See, the problem that I saw with social media, or rather how brands utilize social media,
Yes.
was they are trying to reach to everyone, whereas that need of trying, or rather that compulsion of having to reach everyone was taken away by social media, right? TV पे कैसे था? On TV you would have to create an ad film that would be loved by everybody. On social media you can create your own tribe, in which case you don't have to worry about the larger crowd. You only have to worry about your tribe. And that again, if we go back, it again ties with, staying consistent, defining your message and staying consistent, because there's always somebody who resonates well with you. As long as you focus on the community that actually resonates with you, you have nothing to worry about. Like, you don't need 50 lakh followers or 5 lakh followers.
Yeah.
As a cafe, having 10,000 people care about your cafe is way more valuable than having 1 million followers who sometimes see your posts, right? Even as a business, like we work with Haldirams and this and that, where we define that, okay, this is the target audience we want to approach. This is how we want to approach them. And we stick to that. You don't go beyond that in trying to appeal to everybody, because there's proverbs on that. Trying to appeal to everybody will most definitely help you reach nobody.
That's true. That's true. So, in an industry which thrive on fresh ideas, so basically, I want to ask, like, the people who are working in this industry, how do they keep themselves motivated day to day? In their day-to-day life, so that fresh ideas will come to them and they will also not face burnout.
Yes, that is extremely interesting, and that is why I'd like to point out that brands that are creating in-house agencies, I don't think that model is long-term sustaining, because see how things work in an agency is there'll be probably 15 or 20 odd people working on a brand, right? Now those 15 or 20 people are constantly thinking about the brand. Now, that means that at least 1 or 2 of them are going to have a new idea every day when there's 15 people working on it. And what that does is it takes the pressure away from these singular people. Maybe when in an in-house agency sort of a situation, the 6 people that are working on a brand are working only on that brand.
Yes.
So then that makes them burn out quicker. So that is one where you distribute the load of coming out with new ideas. That we do as the agency founders. Another thing we do as agency founders is we ensure that people have a life outside of advertising. so that their advertising can have life. So we have this strict rule in Wit and Chai where as long as, nothing is on fire, we try to send home everybody by 6:30, right?
Yeah.
Because then you can go out, you can hang out with your friends, and that life around you gets built. Because if you go out, hang out with your friends, you're going to see someone, or you're going to talk to someone who's going to give you an add-on experience that maybe then you can bring into advertising, and it also, protects people's mental health. So those are the two things that we do as agency owners to ensure that people, keep coming up with fresh ideas and don't get burnt out. On the side of the staff, like some of the things that we consistently tell them to do is understand that advertising is not that serious of a business. We're not surgeons, right? We're not playing with people's lives, right? We are creating creative and new ways for people to want to buy products or services, right? It's like advertising is one of those places where you're allowed to have fun, rather you're paid to have fun, right? So that core understanding, if people maintain, then there's no reason to get burnt out, because then you're not putting yourself under this immense pressure of I mean, of course, there's like deadlines, and there's work that needs to go out, and it's never exactly what you wanted. So there's that gap between expectation versus reality. But still, like, having that larger understanding that advertising is like, I mean, it is consequential, but it is not actually impacting someone's lives, or it's not a serious field. You're not building bridges. You're not solving criminal cases. You're trying to get people to buy products in a fun way. So keep that in mind. Keep the feel lighthearted. That helps people remain sane.
Absolutely, I agree to that point. Like, people who are working in this creative space, they shouldn't work in silos, because ideas
Yes,
can come from within and can come from surroundings around you.
100%.
Like, yes, and also the amount of experimentation and trial and error that this kind of profession gives, I mean, allows you to do, that no other profession will allow you to do.
Yes. I always talk to, whenever I'm talking to the youngsters in the agency, I always talk about, how there is art, right? Where you just make art because you love art, right? And then there is like hardcore engineering or hardcore law, where there are certain rules out of which you're not allowed to go, right? And then there's advertising, which is in the middle, right? Which is you're getting paid to be artistic. We always have heard of this, cultural phenomena of artists being poor until they are recognized, which is true unless you are in advertising, right? Yeah. So yeah, that's it.
So, with the intervention of AI and automation in creative space, do you really think that the job of advertising professionals are at stake in future?
I'm not going to mince my words. I 100% believe that a lot of jobs will be taken away by AI, even in advertising. Um, there will take some time for advertising world, in fact, actually the world in general, to realize how difficult it is going to be to navigate the AI landscape as we move forward, because a lot of jobs, not just in advertising, will be taken by AI. And the problem is that those jobs that are taken will be entry level jobs, which will mean that people, so, how does somebody become a senior copywriter? They have to be a junior copywriter first. If the job of a junior copywriter has been taken away by AI, because AI can give you, 30 options of a, key line that you crack, then that new junior copywriter never gets to learn how to become a senior copywriter. And that is going to be a massive problem. And one of the things that I'm banking on is that no government across the globe can handle this kind of unemployment. So there will be regulation on AI. And the second thing that I'm obviously, at Wit and Chai, we understand that whatever are the rules of the game, you have to play by those. So what we are encouraging, the youth at our, because they are the ones that are going to be affected the most. So what we're encouraging the youth at Wit and Chai to do is to ensure that they use AI, but they don't depend on it.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
That puts them in a position of advantage that, they can learn faster. And by the time the regulations come, they have outpaced their competitors. So that is where, I think right now, and again, all of these are, because if you understand, about 6 to 8 months ago, or even a year ago, right, AI wasn't a serious thing.
Yes.
Now it is making ad films, right? You will see a lot of 1 to 2 people agencies coming up, where there's just 2 prompt engineers who are working with 2 brands or 3 brands, engineering prompts for them, creating advertising and social content for them, and calling it a day, right? But overall, as an industry, everybody has to be worried about AI, because the core problem with AI is, when you work or when I work, we work to earn money so that we can spend that money somewhere. So a worker is also a consumer. AI is only a worker if AI is not going to consume anything. If AI doesn't need toothpaste, right? So then all the toothpaste companies should be worried about AI.
Yeah.
AI doesn't need a car, so all the car companies should be worried about AI, right? So that's the way I look at AI right now. Quite honestly, I have no idea where this is going to go. I think there will be regulation because it is a technology that requires regulation, but I am not also sure whether the current governments across the globe are capable of coming up with that regulation, because it is so advanced and so complicated. But we've done it before with atomic, so I don't.
Yes, and also we should not forget that using AI can also reduce the amount of work that we do. And at the same time, this is something being created by human. So it is not going to take that ideation that a human is capable to do.
If you look at the current advancements in AI, they are reaching that point where, I think it was the founder of OpenAI who said, or one of the larger investors in OpenAI, that said that everything that humans have created has already been consumed by their AI. Now the AI has two models in it. One is now creating new stuff that the front-facing AI is now learning, right? So the imagination or the creativity that humans so pride themselves on, we might not be too far away from a point where AI is capable of doing that as well.
Yeah.
Right. So, and the part that you spoke about, making our lives easier, what happens with that is, it's making our lives easier by taking away the bottommost job, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, if you're a CA, there was an apprentice to you who would do all the calculations on Excel. By doing those calculations, that apprentice would learn and someday become a CA. Right now, that apprentice job is being done by AI. So that apprentice never gets to learn. So who's going to become a CA?
That's true.
Right. So that's the circle that I see happening. But then again, it might just be a pessimistic view of life. That's not how I'm generally about technology. I'm very, we were one of the first to adopt augmented reality as soon as it came out, right? Even with AI, we've been, on top of it. I mean, we recently did a campaign with Saif Ali Khan and Behruz where Saif Ali Khan, would send out personalized wishes to everybody that ordered Behruz biryani on Diwali. So, I'm all game for utilizing AI, but when it comes to the larger picture, I don't know where this is going.
Right. So how has been your journey so far as an entrepreneur?
So fun. I think that comes from a certain level of privilege. I was born in a middle to upper middle class family where I did not have to struggle much through school, through college, so on and so forth. The only time I had to struggle was because of my own faults. When I failed in engineering and so on and so forth, I partied too much. So I've never really had to face struggles of life, and it has been the same with business as well. Right? My build up for the first 20 years has been so good that because of the pleasure, because of the privilege that I have, that I've not really ever faced an hurdle that has made me feel like this is it. I cannot cross this, and if I don't cross this, I am done. Right? Because I always knew that, no matter what happens, I'm going to be able to bounce back from it. Now that is a privilege, and that I have gained because of my parents, because of my wife, who have always supported me. So, business, because of this very reason, has been extremely fun. Right? Me, my partners, we have a lot of fun, and we look forward to making mistakes, right? Because that's the only way you discover new things. So yeah, it's been fun. We've obviously had ups and downs. There have been times when we were down to, the bank account balance was lesser than the salaries we had to pay. So we had to, sit on our, bikes and travel across Pune asking for work. I need some work today to ensure that I can pay my staff. COVID was fun. All throughout COVID, we never fired anybody. We never, stopped anyone's salaries. And we were able to do that because of the financial prudence showed by my partner, upfront. And also because, we were very, we looked at everything as a challenge, not as something that is now going to, kill our company. So, yeah, entrepreneurship has been fun.
Right. The moral of the story is like you took challenge as fun, not as struggle.
Yeah.
So I love the way
Yes,
that
I think
yeah.
Yeah, I think if you're the kind of person who's going to be taking challenges as not a fun thing, then it takes you much longer to grow in business because you have to at some point realize that challenges don't stop, or you're not like you shouldn't be in business. And I have a few friends who are very, very happy doing a job, right? And I really, I appreciate their way of looking at life as well, because right now there's this narrative that entrepreneurship is the coolest thing to do, but then there are people who have been a VP at a software company for the last 6 years who earn a ton more than I do. In fact, there are a couple of friends of mine who have been who are gym trainers who earn almost as much as I do. Now, if we continue using earning as a barometer, then you clearly see that people who are having fun are earning a lot. So that should be the framework.
Right. If someone wants to have a career or build a career in advertising, so what should be the main purpose for them? It should be through education or it should be through hands-on experience.
I believe it is a mix of both, right? Education gives you the absolute bare necessities. It's like learning how to hold a pen. It's like learning how to write ABC. That's what you'll get from education. On field advertising. So compared to some other fields like, law or chartered accountancy or stuff like that, advertising is pretty close to its education, right? The education that you get in advertising institutions is pretty much what you're going to use in your day to day in advertising. What differs and why industry experience is equally important is because humans are involved, right? And humans have inefficiencies, which means your 4 P's of marketing, the brand that you're talking to, their CMO only understands 3. So you now have to work with only 3. You cannot ever convince them that there is a 4th P. Right. So that is why the field experience is also equally important. And I think all advertising schools have that built into their course as well, where, they will make sure that at least 6 months of internship is a part of their curriculum, because I think now education is reaching that place where they now understand that on-field experience is just as important as theory. And another thing is, on-field also teaches you to never fall in love with theory, because there will always be a new exception that comes up in the real world, right? You've learned something in theory, but now there is this exception. So that keeps happening. So that's why both things are important.
So do you also get some clients who will come to you and say like, "Your sales badha do"?
Of course, and I do not think that is an unfair ask, right?
Okay.
At the end of the day, the marketing funnel consists of these 5 steps, right? Awareness, consideration, trial, purchase, and loyalty, right? Most advertising firms either are talking about, making sure that, we cater to the awareness and consideration phase by creating these big ad films and, creating billboards and this and that. But at the end of the day, your advertising has to have impact on the top line and bottom line of a business, right? We do get a fair share of clients who come to us saying, we need to increase our sales. Obviously, we handhold them in taking them through the process. You cannot directly increase your sales. First, you have to increase the awareness. Then of the people who are aware, some people will consider. Then those who have considered, some of them will try. And then of those who have tried, some of them will buy. So, and then some of them become loyal customers, and we work on all 5 stages to ensure that all of our businesses get, and it goes back to, how we started. We don't have any advertising background. So we never knew how to talk about vanity metrics like, your post got this many likes, right? I mean, it is an important metric to look at to figure out whether your content is being enjoyed by people or not. But it's not an important metric to figure out if your content is having actual business impact. Actual business impact comes from sales, and that has to be looked at.
Right. So where does India stands globally in terms of advertising or creating this space as a whole?
See, what I'm seeing happening a lot is that there was this clear power distinction between US, Europe versus India, or even Singapore. Like Singapore would be, if your agency is from Singapore, you would be considered to be better than an agency coming from India. And I'm talking about, only independent agencies, because group agencies have their own thing. McDonald's will give work to, say, a TCP, no matter which country they are in, right? Yeah. So that's a different thing. We'll not talk about, the group agencies, the big Dansus and Publicis of the world, but independent agencies back, I think when we started, or, slightly before that, independent agencies used to be looked at as, if you're from India, you're going to create subpar work, right? Now, because of the advent of, agencies like Talented, or agencies like, Wabba Labba Dub Dub, some of these guys are doing some really cool work. And we try to be a part of that mix as well, where an independent agency is doing work globally that is recognizable. And what that has done is, if you look at, one of the vanity metrics of advertising industry itself is how many cons does a country have. And that number for India has been steadily growing while all of the others are, decreasing. So India is becoming a powerhouse. Is it a powerhouse right now? In India, for sure. Outside, not so much. So would a British company consider an Indian advertising agency? I'm not too sure. But back in the day, even an Indian company would want to work with a British company. Now they want to work with an Indian company. So at least we've gained ground over there.
So, what will be the percentage of advertising that a startup founder should do offline and online? Also, adding to this question, I have one specific question. Like, for example, a startup founder is into product, and which all are the platforms that they should use? And if they are going for the service business, then which all platforms they should use?
Very interesting. That's a loaded question. Let's take it step by step, right? Offline and online. We'll talk about those first. Offline advertising, according to me, is more about blitzkrieging certain geographies, right? And I'll tell you what I mean by that. Let's say you are a chakli manufacturer, right? And you have just started distribution. You're from Nagpur or you're from Mumbai, and you've just started distribution in Pune. You should focus heavily on offline advertising in Pune, because offline advertising, everybody knows it is costly, and two, it is hard to do. So any consumer that sees good offline advertising is paying attention to it. The problem with offline is that it gets stale very, very fast, right? People see it twice, thrice, they're done with it. And because of the costs involved, you cannot keep on producing it, right? So there's no agility in offline advertising. So that's why you should do it in limited geographies where you want to push your product or your service. When it comes to online, you should look at talking to, creating, as I said, you should create your community and, figure out how to talk to them. And any brand that is doing any advertising outside of, targeted advertising these days is pretty much throwing money away, right? So that is the difference between online and offline. As for product and service, I believe the distinction is less about product versus service and more about, B2B versus B2C. The platforms differ based on whether you're B2B or B2C. B2C will rely heavily on Instagram, even on Instagram, more on Reels than on stories, where they will rely on a Facebook. They will rely on running ads on YouTube at times. Whereas a B2B, as everybody understands, is clearly going to be more on LinkedIn, is clearly going to be utilizing more PR. For example, a B2B company has a lot more to gain by being featured by Entrepreneur magazine than they have to gain by being featured by someone like a Social Samosa, right? So B2B advertising is different from B2C. Whether it is product or service, it matters very less, right? Yeah. Because at the end of the day, you are selling to humans and you have to figure out where your buyer human is and just go there and talk to them the way they would like to be talked to.
Right. So if you could predict a major shift in advertising space in next 5 years, what it would be?
Major shift in the advertising space. I believe, there's this one word that I like to use. It's carnage, right? I see a lot of job losses and I see a lot of, profit hungry business owners are going to deploy advertising in-house, and we'll go through this cycle of everyone wanting to maximize their output. And advertising inherently is a field where you cannot try to maximize output. So yeah, if you try to maximize output, you're just going to strangle the whole, dynamic between a consumer and a business, right? You cannot ask your consumer to buy more toothpaste than they need, right? And that is the issue. So a lot of job losses will happen. A lot of brands will have internal agencies. And then over the next 5 years, if you ask me, they will eventually reach that stage where there will be parity. There will be a regression to the mean where the jobs will be back in advertising. AI will be utilized lesser because now everybody understands that if people are using AI, that means they are not buying things because they can't earn more. So on and so forth. So I think there will be a regression to the mean over the next 5 years. But by laws of mathematics, if you are going to regress to the mean, you have to start with a peak and a trough. I think we're staring at a trough right now.
Right. All right. It was really an insightful conversation, and thank you so much for giving us your time. Thank you so much for joining us.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.